One day, as I was exploring, I found this glowing artifact and I was obsessed. I went to show the villagers, but they greedily fought over it and broke it. Something snapped in me that day, and I had to leave the remains of that village behind. I wandered aimlessly, fixated on getting another one. I couldn't eat or sleep. Soon, it was all I could think about. I turned the last piece of the broken beacon I had into a necklace, and soon this obsession left me an empty shell of a man with only 3 goals to keep me going. Number 1, befriend a dangerous animal to guard my possessions, who I would later end up having to save from an evil goat. Number 2, build a fortress in an ice spikes biome where no one would dare trespass. And number 3, defeat a wither and use its remains to be reunited with my precious beacon. Now, let's see what happened. Day 1, I had wandered into a giant taiga forest, and as soon as I walked out from under a tree, I burst into flame. After collecting some wood, I began digging down. I got myself some basic tools and had to make a covering over my head to get to this next tree. Normally, I would get some food first, but I needed something to protect my head from the sun. I dug down into this cave and saw a light. Have you ever found a ruined portal underground before? I found a few shiny pairs of pants, a golden hoe, and a nice Rolex. It was only day 1 and I was looking pretty expensive. Then I grabbed some coal and iron and soon had myself an iron pick and a nice iron helmet. I used my new pick to collect the gold block from the portal, and I figured I might as well get some extra iron while I was down there. I tried to kill a spider while I waited for my iron to melt, and I quickly realized my rickety bones were not made for close-up combat. I would definitely need to craft myself up a bow. Once I had plenty of iron, I made myself full iron armor, but I did keep my protection 3 gold pants. While I was collecting a little extra iron, I was fortunate enough to stumble upon a mine shaft, which is one of the easier ways to get string in Minecraft apart from killing spiders. And you need a sword to get string from cobwebs. I spent day 2 looking through the mine shaft and remembered you can get food from the chests, which I was in desperate need of. I did not think the first food I would get in this world would be glowberries and a golden apple. Since I got enough string for a bow, I threw my sword away thinking I wouldn't need it anymore and continued on my way. I did find some bread in some chests too, and check this out. The mine shaft spawned going through an amethyst geode. I started reconsidering getting more string while it was so easy to get as I munched on some more bread, and I figured I might need more than 1 bow or a fishing rod or something, so I grabbed some more. And that's when I found a skeleton spawner with another golden apple and a saddle. Day 3, I made it back to my little base and was off to a great start. I gathered as much gravel as I could and turned it into flint. That night, I crafted my first bow and I emerged from the cave as the sun began to set. I went around with a flint and steel, lighting animals on fire for some fast food. I also took this time to collect as many feathers as I could, but it was a little frustrating when they kept jumping in the water and putting the fire out. The chickens up here weren't as safe, and soon I used their feathers to craft my very first arrows. Since I had found a saddle, I decided to test out my bow on a slime to use its drops to make a lead. As the sun began to rise the next morning, it was time to see if I would burst into flame again, and my iron helmet protected me. I still wanted to find a nice shady spot and spend the next couple of days fishing. Fish is one food I could easily gather without having to waste any arrows or flint. On day 6, I began traveling to find an ice spikes biome, which is one of the more rare places in the world. I came across a pillager outpost that had a few good things, mostly wheat and bread, and I noticed they had captured an iron golem, so I released it just for fun. Then I tried to join in killing it, and that was not the best idea. After killing most of the pillagers, I ended the iron golem and saved the day. And just as I was walking away from the pillager outpost, my helmet broke and I caught on fire right in the middle of the desert. I scrambled to get a new helmet on before dying and ate some freshly crafted bread to get my health back up. Once I was in a shady place near some water, I made an extra helmet so that hopefully this would never happen again. Then I traveled through the savannah, running from tree to limit my exposure from the sun in these hot biomes, until I came across a village, and while approaching it, I gathered some more feathers. Then I looted everything that the village had. Apparently, bread was quite the collectible item in this world. I made a stone hoe and spent that night collecting all of their wheat. The phantoms I've been avoiding up to this point finally caught up to me. I got a good shot on one of them, but I didn't want to waste too many arrows, so I ran for the nearest house to sleep. I stole this guy's bed and drifted chaotically into a nightmare, as they just watched me sleep and waited for the night to pass. On the morning of day 9, I was greeted by an iron golem at the front door, who was waiting for just the right moment to kill this last phantom. If only he knew what I did at that pillager outpost. I was going to sell my wheat for some emeralds to buy arrows from the villagers, but they refused to trade with me, even though they didn't have any wheat, well, anymore. So I left the village in search of a horse. Important tip, if you are playing as a mob with a bow, kill every chicken you find in your travels, because arrows are pretty hard to come across in the beginning, especially when villagers won't trade with you. I found this horse not too far away from the village village and it was super fast. I began backtracking my way to the pillager outpost when my new helmet broke. This time I was definitely more prepared, but I would need some more iron soon. When I returned to the pillager outpost, I went up right to their leader and shot him in the face. That managed to upset them, so I tried to dodge all of their arrows until I was finally able to defeat their leader. Then I rode off with his flag and the bad omen effect. Upon returning to the village, I broke all of their doors and sat back to watch all of the villagers who wouldn't trade with me run for their lives. I feel like I'm filling this whole villain role a bit too easily now. Anyway, on day 11, I continued my journey to find an ice spikes biome when it started to thunder and rain. That's when I saw the skeleton horse in the distance. I was so excited to see one because it was a perfect fit for me. And as I got closer, it was struck by lightning and spawned 4 skeleton horsemen. They didn't attack me at first, probably because I looked kind of like them, but I really wanted one for myself, so I started shooting them off their horses until I had myself the perfect trusty steed for a stray. Unfortunately, I didn't know how to heal it, so I killed a different skeleton and took his horse instead. I tirelessly continued my journey, traveling through mountains and forests. I just love exploring new worlds, and isn't that sunrise beautiful? Focus on that sunrise and not what I'm doing. That's the mind of a stray. Kills the chicken and totally misses the drops. I was so excited to finally see snow again, and when I found this igloo, I got off my horse and went inside, but I wasn't able to go too far because I was too tall to walk on the carpet. So I just went back out, got back on my horse, and continued on my way. It was a huge relief to finally see ice spikes render in the distance, and close by was one of the biggest ruined nether portals I had ever seen. After getting the loot from the chest, I climbed this nearby hill to see what else was around, and that's when I saw a polar bear being chased by pillagers. So I ran down to save it, killing all the pillagers, all while trying to avoid getting my horse shot. And when I went to go check up on the bear, it spoke. Are you okay?
Yeah, I could have easily taken them all on myself, but I guess thanks for the help anyway.
Since he was good, I left him there and went to go find a good place to set up my base, and also decide what blocks to build with. I didn't know if it was my mind spiraling into madness, or if that was actually a magic bear who could talk, but I will say that was not the last time that we would cross paths. That night, I came across other people who had strayed far from home. They each had their own type of obsession tied around their neck. Something in these cursed objects drew us to these cold, unforgiving lands, where I did find the perfect place to build. The next morning, I put everything into a chest and tried planting some glow berries just to see what it would look like. Next, I crafted a shovel and got to work on an entrance to a mine. I mined down into a ravine filled with different resources. There were also some glow squid down here, so I got some glow ink sacks, and apparently it was buy one get one free. I wanted to get at least 8 diamonds, enough for a pickaxe and a new helmet, but I ended up with enough diamonds for 1 full diamond block. I also took some time to get some coal and some deep slate for lighting and building purposes. Day 18, I was all out of wood, so after getting some more, I crafted up my new diamond pickaxe and helmet. Then I headed back down into my mine to collect some obsidian to build a nether portal to go collect some soul sand for my light sources. I wanted to make everything feel like it was cold and drained of life like me. Also, soul lights don't melt things. And on day 19, I found a huge warped forest nearby, so I collected a good amount of warp stem to use in my build. Then I headed back to my portal. I was determined to build everything all in one go, so to do that, I would need to collect all my resources all in one go. But before I could do that, I wanted to make sure that I had all the food that I would need. So I went fishing for a couple days until I was stacked with food, which I don't understand why I need food, being pretty much a skeleton. Anyway, the night of day 21, I put my extra fish in a barrel and put a few fish on the fireplace while I began organizing my chests. But when I turned around, the fire was put out before the fish were able to be finished cooking. While I thought that was odd, I just relit the fire and went back to what I was doing. And this time when I turned around, the fish and the campfire was gone. I noticed the polar bear I saved a few days ago was peering at me from behind some ice, so I grabbed some fish from the barrel he was eyeing and went up slowly to him, tossed a few fish his way, and he was very hesitant to take it. It turns out he ran into some other strays who were not so friendly since our last encounter. He gave me some bones, arrows of slowness, as well as some normal arrows too, all drops from strays. I set up a big bed for him, and we both went to sleep slightly afraid of the other. The next morning, I made a fishing rod for my new friend to catch fish in style. Then I went to go search for a nice big cave. Get ready for a montage of resource collection. Almost forgot about this. I needed to collect a lot of iron for lanterns, chains, and iron bars for my base. I also was in search of dripstone, which while collecting, I saw a single diamond in the distance, as well as glow lichen for the inside of my base. While exploring through these caves, I found 2 more diamonds, just enough to craft myself an axe, which I would need very soon. When I made it back to the surface, I crafted an axe and used the extra diamond from my first mining trip to make a shovel to gather a lot of snow. I spent all of day 25 45 just doing this. As far as my knowledge goes, that's one of the fastest ways to break a diamond shovel. On day 26, I crafted up a golden chestplate and a bunch of iron helmets. The chestplate was to make my outfit match a little better. I'm undead, not crazy. Okay, maybe a little crazy. And I figured my diamond helmet would break while I was out collecting wood. I took my horse to look for a variety of trees over the next several days. I cut down some spruce trees, which were pretty easy to find. I traveled a little farther and cut down some oak trees, went a little farther, cut down some birch trees, went a lot farther to cut down some dark oak trees, and right before I got there, my diamond helmet broke on me. So I quickly threw on an iron helmet and put down some water to put myself out. I was definitely a lot more prepared this time. This was probably the most prepared I was for this situation. After collecting some dark oak wood, I returned home with a full inventory, but no axe. After unloading all the wood I collected, I spent day 32 to 34 in search of a savanna biome to collect some acacia wood. Before that, upon arrival of a desert, I realized I did not like the heat at all. It seemed to burn right through my helmets. Eventually, I reached the area where the desert transitioned into a savanna, and I found a desert temple to take shelter from the searing sun. Inside, I found iron horse armor, 2 diamonds, a silk touch enchanted book, and some other enchanted book I promptly disposed of. I also learned skeleton horses can't wear armor. While I was chopping down some acacia trees, I found this village. I'm sure these villagers never saw anything like me before. They were pretty terrified, but they did still let me into their homes, and they even offered me some wheat. Very hospitable. I found another saddle and was really glad I was there when my last helmet broke. I was able to make a couple more and not be stranded in the desert. If that happened, I probably would have died out there. Once I got a good amount of wood and all the loot I could carry, I headed back to camp. Now it was time for my very first build, and I did have some help from my new polar bear companion. The first thing we built was a big pile of snow, and I think it's safe to say I completed my first goal. We had a ton of fun pelting each other with snowballs, but we also had a great start for our base. On day 36, my iron helmet supply was running really low, and I knew I needed better armor to fight the wither with, so I decided to head down into my mine for a big diamond expedition. I also wanted to make sure I had plenty of iron. 24 diamonds makes a full set of diamond armor, and I already had 2 from that desert temple, but I would need some more for an extra helmet and pickaxe. Every time I find diamonds, I hope to see more and more with each one I break. It is so satisfying finding an 8 vein, especially when it leads to a ravine filled with gold. I also took some time to collect plenty of deep slate for my main build. I really love that it's in the game, I just wish it didn't take so long to break. I mean, look at the difference between these coal ores. Just as anticipated, I did have to make a new diamond pickaxe. This dripping water led me to believe I found another ravine, but it was just a random little pool. And this was really cool. I found 4 more diamonds soon after spending 3 on my new pick. And by the end of my mining session, I had a brand new full set of diamond armor, an extra helmet, and 2 extra diamonds. On the morning of day 45, I found my new bear friend eating some glowberries. It seemed to take forever to grow, but then he showed me that you can cut them off the vine and use bone meal to grow some more. And once he left to do whatever polar bears do, I figured out that you can actually handpick berries as well. I really wanted to build up on this hill, so I needed a bridge to collect my pile of snow to the hill, thus establishing a grand entrance to my frozen fortress. I used the different types of wood I had to make the bridge look more frostbitten and like it was falling apart. Since you can't make chains go diagonal, I made it look like they were broken too, especially this part. Now the only thing left that I needed to build my base was basalt. I headed back into the nether and returned to a basalt delta I had passed by in my travels. I spent the next couple days gathering plenty of basalt for the inside of my build, and being used to the cold, I felt like I would wither away in the nether. I luckily did manage to make it back to my base safely, and then it was finally time to build my very own stray fortress. Normally, you design the outside structure and then design the inside of the base. However, my base was special. Sure, it looks like a weird barn or bunker right now, but on the inside, it looks like a boss room you would find exploring this frozen tundra. That's also a new helmet I'm wearing. I wanted to make this place look centuries old, but also like the undead still roamed its halls. On the left side, I made a treasure room for me to live in, and on the right, a little place for my polar bear friend to stay. But before I could show him, I wanted to design the outside as well. And after a few more days of building, I just about completed my second goal of constructing a fortified base to stow away my belongings. I extended my pathway to go further up the hill to these towers with connecting bridges in need of repair. They also had stairwells going all the way to the top, and a nice fenced-in area with special room for an enchanting table. As the sun rose on day 65, my base was looking really good. Now it was time to show my friend our new home. So I headed down the tower, and by the way, here's where the enchanting table will go. But when I got to the bridge, I called out for my polar bear companion, but he wasn't around. I went inside, but he wasn't there either. He couldn't have fit into my room, and his room was empty. I thought maybe he went fishing, but he wasn't there either. water. And of course, the last place I checked, I found this clue. A goat either killed or kidnapped my best friend, so it was time to go on a mission for rescue or revenge. I spent the next few days traveling to the most mountainous region I knew of. On day 69, I discovered a small little village and asked if they knew of any sentient goats nearby. They told me about a giant copper goat head not too far away and said to check there. Then they gave me a map and sent me on my way. On the morning of day 70, I found what those villagers spoke of, and it was a much bigger statue than I would have ever imagined. I got off my horse and climbed up the mountain, and when I got to the top, I saw a goat. I didn't hesitate to shoot off an arrow, but I missed, and the goat, followed by an axolotl, ran down into a stairwell. I pursued, and it led into this giant room with all sorts of stuff, but I was too focused to care. I cornered the goat and the axolotl at the edge of their balcony, and my next arrow hit true, knocking the goat off the cliff. And surprisingly, the axolotl jumped off, following the goat to its presumable death. Anyway, now that they were dealt with, I went back inside and found my friend hanging from the ceiling above a fire. I put out all the fire and broke the trap doors, but he was a little too chunky to fit through the doors, so I had to break a little bit more of the cage to free my friend. Now that we were reunited, we started to head home, but I figured while we were out and about, I might as well ask him if he passed any villages on the way there, because I really needed bookshelves. Then he led me to this village, and it ended up having two different libraries right across from each other. So I went shopping for some books, and we had to stop at one more village to get enough books, but eventually we did make it home. And on the night of day 74, I got to show off my new build, and we got ourselves a new enchanting table set up. The next morning, my helmet was just about to break. I also wanted a new pickaxe to enchant, and I would also need an anvil along with blocks for a beacon. So I headed back down into my mine for the last time this video. Day 78, I put a fresh anvil and grindstone near my enchantment table. Then I got Unbreaking 3 on my new pickaxe, level 3 Unbreaking Protection and Depth Strider on my boots, which would actually come in handy more than I thought. And I got Unbreaking 3 and Infinity on my new bow, which meant I did not have to worry about arrows anymore. After enchanting everything, I had the idea to build some frozen looking trees, but I would have to travel again pretty far. And as I set sail for another adventure, I had another helmet break on me, so I quickly threw on another and jumped overboard. What a weird time to randomly combust. Out of all places to get my building blocks, you probably didn't expect me to get it from a coral reef. Dead coral can look like a lot of things, including dead leaves. Also, I was really surprised to find out that I can actually breathe underwater as a stray. It must be because I don't have lungs or really any organs anymore. Upon return to my fortress, I spent the next 2 days making all of these dead spruce trees, along with one partly alive and one that had fallen over. It was like whatever dark magic dwelt in my base was sucking the life out of everything in the surrounding area. On day 83, I had a somewhat fierce beast to guard my new fortress, so now it was time to complete my last goal of getting the beacon I so desperately desired. I began my search for a fiery fortress that opposed my own. Day 84, I found one not too far away from my portal, and I spent that day running around the fortress, looting chests, and taking some time to set up places for me to hide and shoot wither skeletons from afar. I spent the next several days hunting down as many wither skeletons as I could, in an attempt to get 3 wither skulls. The skeletons were pretty manageable. The blazes, however, were far more difficult adversaries. On day 94, I had enough wither skulls to spawn a wither. I returned back to my base and used all the levels I had earned to enchant more of my armor. Now that I had everything enchanted, I was ready to fight. I heard of the destructive power the creature I was about to spawn in possessed, so I traveled very far away from my base. On day 97, I felt like I was far enough away from home, so I prepared a place to hide just in case, and then I spawned in the wither. After the initial explosion, I tried to hit it with as many arrows as I could. When I eventually got its health down about halfway, my arrows no longer affected it, and I had no melee weapon. Things seemed a bit hopeless. Do I make a run for my horse? I didn't know what to do. And that's when I heard a growl of a polar bear, and watched as my companion jumped out from hiding to take on the wither. His bite was more than the wither could handle. Then we couldn't help but dance in celebration. We spent the next 2 days traveling back home, and we saw the towers in the distance as the sunlight glistened over the horizon, marking my 100th day as a stray. I crafted a beacon and placed it on a pedestal I just built.
Nice!
Then we went and watched as the sun began to set on our new Ice Kingdom. Thanks to Luke the Notable for starting the 100 Days trend, to Skies for helping me make this video, to my patrons for all the support, and to you for watching. You can follow me on Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter using the links below, and consider liking and
Subscribe! Please, we're desperate.
Thanks again for watching.